Are they the lucky ones? That's what you're thinking, isn't it? We're a long way from home. We've jumped way beyond the red line into uncharted space. Limited supplies, limited fuel, no allies, and now, no hope. Maybe it would have been better for us to have died quickly, back on the colonies with our families, instead of dying out here slowly in the emptiness of dark space. Where shall we go? What shall we do?
Hi everybody, welcome to Smoking and Drinking in Space. I am Jason.
This is Red.
And we're discussing episode 2 of the original miniseries on Sci-Fi back in 2003.
My spine is glowing with anticipation.
I know. So, I don't know exactly what to say about the beginning. I mean, it's almost like they took a full, 3-hour feature here and basically just cut it off in the middle. The ending of the last was somewhat, suspenseful. Did that ship survive the supposed EMP blast?
Right.
But it just started right where it left off from the last episode. There wasn't any recap. There wasn't any... it was just you stopped at the last one, you started at this one. It was kind.
They're lucky Joss Whedon wasn't in on this, or they'd all be
right.
dead.
Well, yeah. He does like to kill his characters off.
He does. Do you like him? Does this one
especially
fit good?
Pilots. He really has something against pilots.
Damn. Yes.
I don't know. What'd you think about it? It was kind of it was abrupt. It was like a shock of cold water in the face.
Afterthought. Yeah. Well, I figured they looked at it, and the action, it maintains a really good flow. I think they just did that because it was the most logical place to do it for time allowed, and also that was, like you said, a good cliffhanger.
So, where we left off was Leah Dama Apollo had set off some sort of EMP to try and trick the Cylons into thinking that the nuclear missiles that they launched off had ignited and blown up the ship that they were shooting at. Of course.
Well, apparently they did detonate. I've never heard of an EMP causing a detonation, but apparently that's what happened. I figured that it would just render them inert.
Well, did they detonate, or was the EMP supposed to simulate the detonation? I thought the EMP...
Well, the EMP is supposed to simulate the detonation, but we have to presume that the missiles themselves must have done something, or they would have picked up just, good old-fashioned inertia. There'd be two objects moving through at a very high velocity.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Tangential, but we don't want to get too sciencey.
Yeah, let's stop that.
Let's not get too sciencey. We better cut that shit out. I'm sorry. I had a DeGrasse Tyson moment. I'm sorry. I was thinking lucidly. Anyway, yeah, EMP, bright light, everything's gone. And, of course, that was the sound. They probably had their ear circuits damaged from all the sound in space.
Sound in space.
I digress. Sound in space. I'm sorry. I'll smoke and drink some more. Continue.
Yeah, we'll get to the smoking and drinking part in this episode. Yeah, here in a little while.
Oh, they got some.
Well, yeah, but not nearly as much as you would expect in an episode like this. In fact, I'm trying to think if there was any drinking at all. Anyways, we'll get to that.
Poker game. Poker game. Colonel Ty at the very beginning of the show. He was hungover. He had a little hair of the dog there at the shift.
Oh yeah, that was episode 1 though. I'm talking this episode here. Yeah,
right.
So.
Right.
So you find Lee, or the president and the pilot of the executive ship, finds Lee kind of passed out in front of the FTL drive. And you learn that this gambit was something that they had talked about in War School, but it never worked in the simulation. So it was kind of a
Never.
It was kind of a Hail Mary that they were just trying out here.
Well, yeah, if you're falling off a skyscraper, I say flap your arms, try and fly.
It's not gonna hurt.
What? Just fut the wuck, man. Fut the wuck.
So we're cutting over to Galactica, and they're trying to determine what they're going to do at this point. So, what were they discussing?
They need to get ammunition.
Right. They needed to jump to Ragnar Station. I guess that's Ragnar Station. That's it.
Ragnar Station. They need to get ammunition, and they're also trying to find out what's going on. They're getting reports in from the fleet. It's getting itself chopped to pieces.
Right. So,
one person's in command, then that Battlestar's gone, then another person assumes command. They've got different rally points, and Galactica has decided that rather than try and link up with the fleet and bring her fighters to bear what little she has left, she's going to need some ordnance before they do that.
Right, because they had pretty much de-armed her for...
Yeah, she was decommissioned.
Yeah, she was being decommissioned to become a museum ship, so...
Right.
I think they had minimal defenses and probably really no ammunition to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're trying to...
They had ordnance and weaponry for the fighters, but I don't think they had anything for the ship itself.
So, they're trying to plot a jump over to Ragnar Station. Now... Interestingly, I'm not exactly sure what Ragnar Station... is this supposed to be some sort of hidden kind of ammo cache? What was it hiding in? Was this like a nebula?
It's
or
not,
some...
It's not hidden. It's not hidden. It's not necessarily... It's more of like, if I had to give it any kind of a title, it's a munitions depot inside a nebula. If you're not military, you shouldn't know about it. They don't want it just sticking out like a sore thumb. But since the Cylons were able to penetrate the database, they knew where it was.
Why stick it in the middle of a nebula?
Well, I think because if you notice, they had to go through it like a passageway into the, like the eye of the storm. That means that you've only got one point of entry. It's good for defense. If you don't know how to navigate that particular, the eddies and whatnot that may be present in the sci-fi science universe, it would probably make it detrimental for anybody just stumbling across it by accident.
Yeah, I always wondered about sci-fi representation of nebulas. And I think it kind of started around the Wrath of Khan nebula that Kirk fought Khan in. Because they always
the Mutara.
They always portray it as this kind of electrical storm cloud type situation, when in reality I really don't think a nebula is going to be anywhere near like that. I mean, it's a kind of a collection of dust, cosmic dust that either once was a star or planet that got blown out or is coalescing to become something, but nebulas are humongous, and I don't think I think sci-fi kind of condenses that nebula a lot more than it actually is. I think if you were actually in a starship in the middle of a nebula, you wouldn't really notice it much.
More than likely.
Alright, so they plot the ETL jump. They do the countdown for the ETL jump, which apparently their second is 2 of our seconds. That really just... I don't know. I didn't take that well. They said they were counting down from 10, and it took like over 20 seconds to complete that countdown. So somebody...
Well, they had the camera moving, you know. It was like 10, 9, and then they want to show you 5 different angles at 9.
Yeah, it was awful. It was trumped up.
It was awful. How do you really feel?
It was trumped up suspense. I mean, come on, just count down. 10 seconds is a long time. But they make the jump, and then everybody applauds. So is ETL jumping that big of a deal in this universe? It seems like it's technology that they've had for quite a long time.
Maybe it's got something to do with the fact that their computers aren't networked and they have to have active scans of the system to avoid any kind of bumping into things. I mean, think about if you're going through various systems, I don't know how much distance they can cover or the various things they're going to be going through that's in the middle between A and B. I since they're not really going, it's like they wink out and wink back in. So I'm thinking they don't necessarily have to go through space so much as they're like folding space. And they just need to make sure where they're going is clear. I mean, you wouldn't want to just show up in the middle of an asteroid field or a planetary ice ring or something. And
oh, yeah, no.
Oh, look, there's a bunch of stuff in our hull now, or the mess hall's a wreck. There's things in it now. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. It just, the applause seemed odd. So they make it.
Well, I know they hadn't. They made it sound like they hadn't done one in a while. They may not even been sure that the old girl could do it.
Well, that's true. She is an old ship. She was about to be mothballed, so I can understand.
This is. Let's leave it there. That's what it is. They weren't sure. Is it going to work?
Fair enough.
So they're just happy that they lived.
So they make it to Ragnar, and they're going through this little, I guess maybe the butthole of the nebula. I don't know. They're navigating the rectum of the nebula, and it's interesting how they kind of navigate through that. He's basically giving commands, heading and position the ship through this opening, and they've got actual steering instruments to steer this large ass ship. It reminded me, it was very Red October. It was like make my depth 250 feet.
Red October. Nice.
So they make it through, and there's a space station in the middle of this nebula. It's spinning around, I guess, to simulate gravity, and they dock up to it, open up the doors, and start looking around. There's rust on the outside of the space station, which was rather interesting.
Now, come on. We could do that with just, they've got atmospheric generators, electricity, and condensation. Come on.
No. The outside.
Well, that's
where they docked.
Camouflage.
Where they docked.
That's camouflage.
That big ass door had rust on it.
That's camo.
Camo for what?
Let it
Okay.
go.
Letting it go.
Let it go. They're happy. They're there.
So they're looking around, and lo and behold, somebody is on the space station, and he's got a gun pointed at how many would you say? About a dozen people that came onto the space station from Galactica.
Chief Terrell and his crew.
So you got a dozen people from the Galactica armed themselves, and he decides to point a gun at them like he's gonna take them all out, right?
Well, there you go. Yeah, YOLO.
And he's not looking too hot. He looks like he had some hot nights in Tijuana.
He was disturbed by the rust on the outside of the door.
I was disturbed, so I can only imagine.
He was stressing.
It's a very stressful situation.
I mean, he's fucking in there.
That's right.
You're watching it. He's
if that
in
shit
there.
rusts through, what are you going to do?
Right. I mean, come on.
So they talk him down and take his gun, and they're loading shit up, and somebody is moving some ordnance. The chief yells, "Hey, be careful with that." It falls over. Something falls out of this crate that they're moving, and it arms itself. Apparently, it's this high explosive. So,
Yeah. Contact ordnance. We've got it now.
well, yeah, but you have to arm that before it becomes contact ordnance. I mean, there's safety mechanisms
Yeah,
in place.
there's a pin. On the simplest stuff we have, there's a pin like a grenade. It releases from the wing of the ship or the pylon, and it's hot.
But this shit's just hot all the time.
It's the rust.
So the sweaty tooth madman was talking with Adama. He came down to kind of look at and coordinate the arming effort, or the movement of the armament to the Galactica, and Adama...
Sweaty tooth madman. I'm still mulling that over. I like that.
I stole it.
I know you did. I'm just trying to remember from where.
I'll give you 2 hints. It's a Robin Williams film.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
It's a Robin Williams film.
All right. Give me the second hint. He's been in a few.
It was what, late 80s, early 90s that this film came out?
I'm going to jump out on a limb and say
Think poetry.
Dead Poets Society.
There you go.
I was trying to remember it. I kept wanting to say Captain, My Captain, but I'm like, no.
No, that's the same movie.
It is. That's why I couldn't remember the name of the movie.
So, Sweaty Tooth Madman, Adama is coordinating the efforts of getting the Galactica rearmed. Bomb arms himself. Sweaty Tooth Madman is over there by Adama, and he shoves himself and the guy that was on the station into this corridor, I guess is what it was. The bomb goes off and blows the corridor all to hell. The hatch that closed up the corridor is all jacked up. They can't open it. But Adama and the other guy, who was looking like a syphilitic nightmare, they're okay. So the chief says, okay, I've got some guys that are about to get you out. And Adama says, no. Just continue getting all this shit back onto the Galactica. We'll find another way around the station to get back to you. Oh,
sounds good.
Around this time, I think last episode we were trying to discuss about how many people are on the Galactica. There's about 2,000 people on the Galactica at this point.
Then she's got a lot of big fucking equipment.
Yeah.
Because you can get 6,000 on a Gerald Ford aircraft carrier. And she's a little bit bigger than the Gerald Ford.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And they may have had a kind of a skeleton crew because, again, she was being
That
mothballed.
could be too. Right.
So,
could be too.
So we cut over to Gaius.
And his lovely hallucinations.
Yeah.
Or are they?
Yeah, they're hallucinations.
Sure, it's not some part of his... What the hell is that? Pineal gland activating the third eye and...
Well, it's interesting you say that. So he's on the presidential or the executive starship. He has been kind of promoted or assigned to be the science advisor to the new President Rosalind. And he's looking through some paperwork, trying to, I guess, figure out how the Cylons became what they are and why they attacked. And then 6 shows up and starts talking to him. And it's the 6 in the red dress that ends up being a hallucination. He realizes that it's some sort of hallucination. But she kind of floats the idea that maybe we, put a chip in your brain and we're sending signals to you this way. And he's like, no, that doesn't really jive. I'm pretty sure you're just a figment of my imagination. And it turns out he's dreaming at this point because he kind of moans and starts awake. And yeah, he was sleeping. There's other people in the cabin with him. But one of the things that she said was interesting. I think she's trying to imply that Gaius is God, because um, she said something about, I want you to love me because God is love.
Well, I didn't get that she was implying he was God.
That's definitely the impression I got whenever I saw the scene.
I didn't get that at all. I think that what she's trying to say is God is love as she perceives it, and she wants to be loved because that would bring her closer to God. As most people that have religious inclinations, they want to be as close to their God as possible. And if anything, the loving, intimate relationship would be something that would emulate, even in a minuscule way, what was going on between her and her creator. So I don't think she was implying that he was God at all.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I still think she's trying to imply he's some sort of god.
Oh, she's definitely trying to imply that he has a purpose, that God has a plan for him, or he wouldn't have made it this far.
Yeah. So we shift back over to the space station at this point, and it's Adama and the poster child for chlamydia walking through, and this guy he's looking like death warmed over at this point. He's not looking real well. So I was really worried about you at this point, because this was kind of one of those, it's an alternate route through the passageways, character development, where we get to know each other and know more about the
development. I want to see Pew Pew.
So I was really worried about you and your attention span during this point, because it was a character development arc.
My attention was there, but I was also looking for the fast forward.
So at this point, Adama realizes this guy is a Cylon, because he's getting worse, and he thinks it's the nebula storm that's causing his brain to kind of fizz out. So the guy reveals that, yes, he is indeed a Cylon, that they do look like them, and he and Adama have a big fight. Adama beats the ever-loving crap out of him, smashes his skull in, and they drag the body back aboard the Galactica to be autopsied. So then we jump back over to the executive starship. Rosalind's asked Boomer at this point that she sent out a rescue beacon, and I guess they picked her up. They didn't even discuss this. It was just, now Boomer's Raptor is on board, and we're talking to Boomer now. She's asked Boomer to go out and start finding other ships and bringing them to their location so they can kind of convoy out to wherever they need to go to get away from the battle. And it was interesting when they pulled out wide and showed a lot of the ships that had already converged. A lot of them didn't look anything alike. I mean, it was like all of the starships are like custom made at this point. You would expect to see a lot of similar designs, maybe not exactly the same, but a lot of similar designs, just because manufacturing would be much more efficient there. So kind of wanted to get your take on that. Seemed a weird design decision.
Eye candy. It's just eye candy. They're doing it for the appeal. It doesn't make any sense.
I know. I'm trying to make sense.
You are. I mean, look at Star Wars. My God, the only thing that has uniformity was the Empire. The Rebellion, they'll take anything from the Princess Cruise lines and throw some guns on it and throw it into combat.
That's not true. All the Corellian Corvettes and stuff were all pretty much the same. All the Mon Calamari cruisers were all pretty much the same.
No, Mon Calamars are very different. Very organic design. They are not. No two cruisers are alike.
No two cruisers are exactly the same, but they have similar designs.
Well, yeah, you can recognize it as a Mon Calamar design, but...
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to recognize these cruisers or these starships as the same or similar design at all.
Well, you're talking about when the wreckage around Caprica, or are you talking about the fleet that shows up for
talking the
Galactica.
fleet that shows up around the executive ship and then Galactica.
Well, those are private ships. They're not military.
I understand, but even private ships have similar design characteristics.
Some are older. You know, I think it's kind of like going to a used car lot.
Well, yeah, but even a used car lot, you're going to have a lot of similar car designs. I mean, a Toyota Corolla, even through the generations, is somewhat still just like the other generations.
Until you get before 1995. Things were boxier then. I remember back when when I could tell the make of a vehicle just by the shape of its headlights 2/4 of a mile down the road. Now all these damn cars are all bullet shaped. These are just really old ships. That's what it is. The newer ships are sleeker.
Well, slick or not, there's no design continuity between them. So
all right, they fucked up. They
just
deserve to
weird.
be wiped out by the Cylons.
It just looked weird.
It did. And they also had some of the models from the original Battlestar, too.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The Colonial Movers ship, We Move Anywhere. That's what it says on the side of it.
Are you serious?
Yeah. If you look, it looks like a ship, and it's got 3 or 4 axes coming out from a central.
Yeah, I
design.
remember that ship. Yeah,
it looks
spins.
like those freight containers.
Yeah.
Yeah. If look on the original series, you'll see that it says Colonial Movers, We Move Anywhere, and that's from the original 1979 show. And then there are a few models that were brought through. That one was brought through. The Rising Star from the original was brought over, and it looked kind of like. I always thought it looked kind of like a cetacean ship, like a whale or a dolphin type ship. And then there was another one that was more modular looking with a circular, almost Star Trek-esque Federation saucer section in the front.
Yeah,
attached
I
to
saw
a
that
big
one.
engine thing. Yeah, those are all from the original series, those models.
Wow. So are you saying that these were practical effects ships? I thought this was all CGI.
Oh, no. I'm certain that a lot of it was CGI, but even if those 3 ships were CGI'd, they were based on the original models.
Wow, that's cool. That's amazing.
I think it was just a way of tipping their hat to Glenn Larson and to the original fan base,
Right.
which is fun.
So, getting back to it, at this point, they're on the executive ship. They've got a pretty good set of ships around the executive ship. They found quite a bit. They've got about 50,000 people gathered. Actually, a little more. Probably about 55,000 or so. Not all of the ships that they have found have faster than light capabilities. So they're in the process of moving all of the people from the non-FTL ships over to the FTL ships when a Cylon raider shows up. Just pops in between the ships, does a quick scan, and then pops out.
Dirty bastards.
Yeah. So at this point, Rosalind and Apollo and the pilot of the executive ship and I can't remember that other guy's name, but
Hilo? Hilo's on the planet.
No, not Hilo. The guy that they eventually put on the space station later on.
Oh God. Oh shit. I want to say I don't remember his name because they've all got different names.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I want to say
guy,
he's a 6. No, he's not a 6. Is he a 4?
Yeah, they never say that yet. In fact, you don't realize that he is what he is until the end of the show. But
well, we'll fucking delete
he's in there. He's in there, and they're trying to decide what to do. Do they sit and wait and try and get as many people off of the FTL ships and onto the FTL ships? or off of the non-FTL ships and onto the FTL ships as possible, or do they leave now? And Apollo says, we need to jump now. It
Right.
doesn't matter that we've still got people that need to be shifted over. We're just going to have to leave them. It's a numbers game. We can wait and try and save thousands now and risk tens of thousands, or we can cut bait and run. And so
Right.
Rosalind,
He's a real jerk.
well, I mean, he's not a real jerk. He's just looking at it very pragmatically. He's looking at the numbers and saying, the risk isn't worth the reward at this point, because
You
the risk
call
is...
it pragmatism. I say he is a heartless individual that would kick a Care Bear. It's terrible. You should save all the people.
I would kick a Care Bear, but he's right.
Well, I happen to think they should have stayed there with their fly open, their junk hanging out, and trying to save everybody.
Well, and you would have killed humanity. Congrats.
It'd be a short show and more pew-pew.
So Rosalind makes the hard decision and says, no, set everybody to jump now. She sends the command to jump. Everybody's firing up their FTL engines. All the captains from the other ships are expressing their dissent. Somebody says, why don't we let the other ships know where we're going, and that way they can head to the rendezvous point with just whatever engines they have. They can catch up with us later. And Apollo says, no, we can't do that, because if they get captured, then they know where we're going. So
logically, we must kill all the people we're leaving behind.
No, he didn't say kill them. It's not like they were firing at them. But as they're firing up their FTLs, a squadron of Cylon raiders comes in, and just as all the FTL ships jump out, whole bunches of missiles fly out and kill all the rest of the ships. So
They do.
It's one of those situations where you have to make the hard decision to, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
Is it really a hard decision? Did you honestly find it a hard decision? Were
Well, I
you
didn't.
wrestling with it? Did you feel the conflict within you?
I didn't have to make the decision, so no.
Because I don't think there's much conflict.
Well, no, I mean, at that point, it's really not a hard decision.
It would have been time to go, sucks to be you. And then you jump.
Adama and Syphilis Boy are walking down some stairs. He looks like he's about to shit himself. And he reveals that he's a Cylon at this point. And he and Adama are having a conversation that kind of implies that Adama's a monotheist, which is odd because it seems like a lot of the people in the Galactica universe are polytheistic.
Right.
And really the only monotheistic people that we've really seen so far is Six and possibly Gaius. Oh, I also liked how they were just carrying armament through the corridors of the Galactica too. It's not like they have a loading bay or dock or anything like that. Just through the corridors of the ship, we're going to carry all the ordnance through. It was also Kiss a Stranger Day on the Galactica.
Right. They were also happy to be alive.
Yep.
Kind of makes you want the apocalypse to hit.
The guys has a conversation with Gata about the Cylons using some of the technology that he invented to jam the computer systems on the Vipers whenever they were fighting against them, as well as all the other capital ships. The Galactica only got away with that because they didn't really have upgraded systems on their ships.
Right.
And then he starts hallucinating Six again. They have a nice little conversation. And one of the things she says is, one of the reasons I fell in love with you, Gaius, is because you don't have a conscience. So basically, she fell in love with him because he's a sociopath. She also mentions that the Cylons have probably infiltrated the Battlestar because she's not the only model out there, and nobody knows that they look like humans now at this point, or what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to give an imaginary hand job to Gaius on the command deck.
Well, they're good to have. It's good to be handy.
Apollo and Commander Adama have a touching little reunion. Commander Adama has been notified that Apollo is alive at this point. Apollo is waiting for him in his office, and he goes to leave, and Adama embraces him, which causes Apollo to scrunch up his face, looking like he's trying to hold in a fart. And then they send Starbuck out to do a recon mission outside of the nebula to see what's out there. And remember what she finds?
Yeah, I remember what she finds. Marco. Polo.
A whole lot of polos out there.
A lot of polos.
Yeah, that was a whole lot of polos. There were, 2 base ships and, dozens upon dozens of Cylon raiders.
Oh, yes.
The plan for Adama at first was to resupply, arm up, and go find the rest of the fleet and join in the war. And so he and Roslin kind of butted heads against that. She was like, the war's done. The war's lost. We need to get the hell out of Dodge.
And make babies.
Yeah, go find someplace the Cylons aren't and try to repopulate. But Adama was like, nah, he's not having any of that.
He should have said, are you hitting on me?
He basically stands up and walks out of that meeting.
He's a warrior.
To the bridge. Yeah, goes to the bridge to start strategizing on how they're going to get out. They were planning on leaving all the civilian ships in the nebula. They were going to jump out, go join the fleet. They get the recon report from Starbuck. He looks over and sees the president's aide flirting with somebody on the bridge.
Yeah, that little communications officer.
Yeah, and realizes, we're pretty fucked, so we might as well just get the hell out of Dodge. So he says, nah, what we're going to do is we're going to plot a course out way past any place we've ever explored before and see if we can get a lot of distance between us and the Cylons. So he has Gata plot a course, doesn't tell anybody, or tells Gata not to tell anybody, and they start setting up a plan to use the Galactica as a shield while they get all the civilian ships jumped out. And I love, this was actually a really cool battle. So they get the jump solution, send it out to all the ships. The Galactica goes out the nebula butthole first, turns the ship in such a way that all their arms are pointed at the 2 base ships that are out there, and acts as basically a ship shield to the ships that the civilian ships that will be coming out of the nebula and jumping. And then they just start firing a deluge of bullets at all the ships to stop all the incoming missiles that are coming in, as well as the swarm of fighters that are basically flying headlong into their bullets. So they thin out some of the fighter cover, launch their own Vipers, and their own Vipers actually don't do too bad against the Raiders. The Vipers are also taking out a few missiles. The Galactica takes quite a few hits. I was surprised at that. I counted 5-6 missile hits. How many do you think she could handle?
Well, obviously it depends on where they hit and the yield. But she's pretty much... they don't have the laser weaponry that we're familiar with in other shows. And so she has to have something that can handle kinetic rounds. So I would imagine that her armor plating is pretty substantial in addition to, I would think maybe flexible or multi-layered. Like, oh, I saw a guy once on YouTube. He was showing how to bulletproof your home and car with phone books. You know,
Okay.
and then if you recall that game we used to play, Company of Heroes, nothing stops a bullet like a bag of dirt.
Right.
So I would imagine she's got, armor like that. So unless it's, some kind of a sabot round or really powerful nuke, she can pretty well handle it.
Well, I figured the base ships would be firing nukes. That's why I was asking.
Well, they did shoot a nuke at her, remember? She does get hit with a nuke.
I figured all the missiles would be nukes, but
They
maybe not.
fired no, they fired 3 or 4 nukes. They were not fired. The nukes were not fired from the base ships. They were fired from a raider. Starbuck took out, I think, 2 or 3 of them, and then the one got through. And it definitely rocked her world. I mean, there were sparks flying, and people dutifully fell onto the ground, and the camera was knocked around, so everybody looked like they had some kind of a hell of a hit. And it left a permanent scar that you will see for the rest of the series.
Oh
She
yeah,
has she has a little crater right where that nuke hit,
that's amazing.
which is interesting that you would have a contact nuke anyway. Seems like it would do more damage if it would proximity fuse, but there again, we're getting back to science.
Shh,
I know.
none of that.
My fault.
So during the firefight, Apollo loses a wing and an engine, but he's still okay. He's crippled, but not out of the fight. Starbuck is racking up kills. She definitely proves herself to be one of the best pilots in the fleet, if not the best pilot in the fleet.
Oh my, yes, she's very good.
Once all the civilian ships jump out, the Galactica calls back in the Vipers, but Apollo's ship loses engine power and is disabled. So he orders Starbuck to head back to the ship, and of course Starbuck immediately ignores that order. It was great. I love Starbuck because of this maneuver. I mean, and just the sheer joy that she gets out of being just the craziest person in the universe.
Yeah.
She turns her ship around and uses her, I don't know what the nose hole is for.
It has sensors in it.
Well, the sensors are fucked at this point.
Yeah.
What she does is she shoves the nose hole over one of his cannons and basically marries their two ships together and pushes him back to the Galactica. As the Galactica is pulling in its launch pods, he barely navigates inside, and while none of the other Viper pilots had great landings, her landing was not the greatest.
Hey, any landing you can walk away from
is a good landing, you're right. But they survive. Galactica gets its launch pods pulled inside, and just as a bunch more missiles are about to hit, as well as a bunch of raiders come in, they vanish. Poof. FTL out.
Right. As it should be. They were the first in and the last out.
Right. So while all this is happening, Gaius has been developing a way to detect who's a Cylon or not. Now, he's got ulterior motives. He knows that there's a Cylon device on the bridge underneath the Dratus screens, but he can't let on that he knows that there's a Cylon device on the Dratus.
All right. But how is that brought to his attention?
Well, it's right before he got the hand job.
Well, 6 is
yes.
a part of this. If 6 is a hallucination, then how could she bring that to his attention?
Because he saw it in her briefcase when they were on Caprica. He saw another device just like that.
All right, unbeliever.
So
All
while
right,
he didn't,
unbeliever.
so while he didn't consciously register it, then he noticed it on the bridge, and his brain made that connection, and it formed as a hallucination with 6.
There you go.
So the guy that was on, that was discussing the fate of the civilian ships with Rosalind and Apollo on the executive ship earlier, has been doing stuff on the bridge, taking notes, things like that.
You're speaking of her adjutant, the
I
young
don't
big
know.
kid, the young big kid working for the
No,
president.
no, not her assistant, the other guy. So he was the guy that kind of tried to take the leadership role in the first episode, and she said, "You can help out a lot if you go down and start making, beds for people that will need them once we rescue them."
Mm-hmm.
He had the red suit on at the end of the episode.
Yes, the small man, small stature.
Yeah, I don't guess he's very
Dark hair.
tall. Got...
He was the one that was giving the tour on the Galactic at the very beginning of the first pilot.
Oh, was that him?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I missed that. Yeah, okay. So the tour guide has been doing stuff around the bridge, and so Gaius is basically making him his patsy. He says that he's developed a way to detect some of the synthetic chemistry that was used to make the human-like Cylons from the results of the autopsy that was done on the syphilitic Cylon. And he said that the only person that matched that chemistry was this guy. And then he also says, oh, and I saw this guy kind of doing stuff to this thing on the Dratus console. You might want to check that out, just in case it's some sort of Cylon technology. So they lock him up, they question him, and as they're leaving, they decide, we can't take you with us because we're pretty sure you're a Cylon, but we're not sure enough that we're just going to shoot you in the head. So we're going to leave you on this space station. You got food, you got water. Good luck to you. And of course, he's protesting this entire time, saying, I don't know what you guys think you're doing, but I'm not a Cylon. This dude's a crackpot. Not sure. And they've been in this nebula for a while now, and he's looked just fine. I mean, it's not affecting him like Chlamydia Boy. So after all the ships jump out, one of the last scenes you see is this guy on the ship, or on the space station, and the Cylons are shooting through the door. The door's open, and a whole bunch of 6s and Syphilis Boy and some copies of this guy come out, because he's not looking so good either at this point. He's starting to get the pale face and the sweats. So Gaius was right. I mean, what's the chances of that? Because I'm pretty sure Gaius's test was bullshit.
I agree. I don't think he had as much going for him on that little bit of science. I think it was some dumb luck.
So now we have 3 different models of Cylons. Oh, and where did that note that Commander Adama got that said there are 12 Cylon models come from?
I don't recall, honestly. I remember it was there.
Yeah, I remember it was. I mean, it was there, but it was just there. It was not next to a coffee cup or something. He picks it up, sees that there are 12 Cylon models, and then puts it in his safe.
True.
So that's interesting.
But I think right now the reason he locked it up was because, that's a need-to-know situation. He's got to try and get the ship and the fleet dealt with. He can't just throw out too much information unedited.
Sure.
Cause a panic.
Sure.
Especially since we're dealing with synthetic Cylons that are mimicking humans so well.
Right. No, I totally get why he did it. I just want to know where that note came from. And he didn't seem curious to know where the note came from either. So I think he knows where it came from.
Well, that's not going to be the first time we come across a little faux pas in this series.
So at one point towards the end, they have a funeral scene of the people that have fallen in battle.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of caskets with flags over them. Everybody's in a gathering. It looks like some sort of official priestess is giving last rites.
Oh, I know. You've got to have that.
And at the end, she says, "So say we all," and then they kind of, half-assed, "So say we all," and that just rubs Adama the wrong way. So he gives
Mhm.
a pep talk to everybody.
I like that phrase, by the way. I like
So
that.
say we all.
That's right up. Yeah, that's right up there with huzzah.
Huzzah!
That's up there.
So he gives a pep talk and basically announces that there was a 13th tribe that left the system in search of another Earth or another planet. And they found that planet. And that planet was called Earth. And they inhabit that
That's
planet
right. It's
now.
top secret.
And he, along with just a few others, actually know the location.
Yeah, only fleet commanders and
actually know where this legendary planet is. And they're going to go find this legendary planet. And if you believe any of this shit because it's got flaws out the ass, then you're
sci-fi.
well, I mean, not even sci-fi, but I mean, just anybody that can put two and two together should be able to see the holes in this fucking theory. I mean, first, it's a legend. Okay, so you've got the 12 tribes, and there was this mysterious 13th tribe that left to go find another planet. Okay, so that's plausible. But now they've got a name for the planet, and they know that they found the planet. How do they know this? Did the 13th tribe come back and say, "Hey, we found this planet, and we know"? I mean, that's where the hole grows so big that you can drive a truck through it.
All right, I'm ready. I got the truck.
But he's got everybody believing it, and there's a few that automatically don't believe it. First of all, Rosalind and Private calls him out on his bullshit and says, "You have no idea where this planet is."
She's a school teacher. She wants to see primary and secondary sources.
Right. You have no idea where this planet is. You pulled that out of your ass. And he says, "Yeah, but, people need something to live for. So I gave them something to live for." And she said, they're going to hate you when they realize that there is no planet. He goes, I'll live with that then. So I understand why he did it. I just don't understand how the people fell for it. Apollo knows he's full of shit because I think he knows his father, and the look that he gave during that gathering whenever he said that was like, "Nah, you're full of shit."
Sure, everybody's got to tell.
But they're on their way. They're going to go find that 13th colony.
They are on their way. That is true.
They're going to go find Earth. So they have a mission. Find Earth. He knows where it is. And we know who's the Cylon on the Galactica.
Yes, we do.
So as all the Cylons were piling in on that space station towards the end of the episode, the very last of the episode, they say, "It may take us decades to find them." And a Cylon walks into the station and says, "We'll find them." And it was Boomer. Boomer is a Cylon.
It was Boomer. That is true. That's what happens when you put a girl into a guy's job.
I don't know. I think the girls have done a better job than the guys so far. The guys are 0 and 2.
So say we all. Right.
At least the girl blew up the planet, knocked out all of their defense systems, and the second girl hasn't been found yet. So,
but we have Boomer on the planet, Boomer on a space station, and Boomer on Galactica. The question is, Are they all in sync with one another, or are they operating
Who's the
independently?
boomer on the planet?
Oh, sorry. I forgot. I was remember she landed on the planet, but then she went
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
Galactica.
She's the one that took the people back up.
Yeah. Gaius.
She brought Gaius into our lives.
Typical Cylon.
So what'd you think of the episode?
Well, it had a lot of character development,
Yeah. I suspect that this series
but
is going to have a lot of character development.
oh, it has a lot of fast forward possibilities too. Um, but in general, my now I have you at a bit of a disadvantage. I've already seen the series all the way through. You're still
That's
experiencing
true.
it. So I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to take it away from you. However, one of the things that I personally found a bit interesting in the upcoming episode is the psychology of the characters as it develops under the stress of their current situation and how they each deal with it. My complaint is that as the show progresses, it seems like they're not dealing with it very well. There's some serious post traumatic stress and contemporary traumatic stress going on. It's they're essentially the Galactica could be you could replace the CGI model of the Galactica with a pressure cooker,
Well, yeah, but I mean, I mean,
and
how much health care or mental health care you expect in a situation like this? They might not even have any actual mental health care workers at this
well,
point.
but at the same time, you have to realize on the Galactica, they're military. I can understand civilians having a much more difficult time in dealing with some of the things. But the military personnel, some of them I'm surprised could pass a psyche eval, stay in the fleet.
Well, but if
I mean, everybody's going to crack eventually. And it seems to me that the breaking point on a lot of these characters is really close to the surface. And I think they do that not to necessarily show weakness, but to make the characters more identifiable to the viewer. And so I would want people, if they're going into Battlestar Galactica for the first time, to try and keep that as a little grain of salt in the back of their minds. Because if they do know people that are ex military, I have several friends that are ex military, they're not portraying military personnel as a whole accurately.
I
These people would handle it a lot better than they did. Now, given time, absolutely everybody's going to crack. But you're going to see that, these episodes, the there's just a fragility to a lot of the characters.
yeah, but I don't know of any show that really portrays military accurately.
True. I think the military likes it that way. That way people underestimate them. It's a polytheistic thing, is what it
True.
is. It's got something to do with, I don't know, let's go with Bacchus. I'm sure he is the primary god of this show because it is smoking and drinking.
That's true. Although this episode didn't have any drinking and only one scene of smoking. So what the hell? It hinted toward drinking. Ty really wanted to drink, but
Oh, they're going to make it up. They'll catch up. It's all good.
Starbuck drink shamed him.
Yeah, she did.
In fact, he threw away like a bottle of vodka and then looked at a bottle of whiskey. So definitely tell that
Definitely
tell that Ty is Irish. But
actually, the actor's Australian.
is he really?
Yeah, he's Australian. The guy playing Leodama or
Apollo? Yeah,
Apollo,
he's British.
Apollo, he's British. Of course, Gaius is British. Number 6, Trisha Helfer's Canadian. Anyway, that ought to wrap it up. I think we got it pretty well handled.
I think so. What's on tap for the next episode?
Oh, the next episode, they're going to have some serious issues. They got some serious things going on, and it's going to happen in 33-second increments. Or not 33-second, 33-minute, pardon me. 33-minute increments. And as advanced as the Galactica is, it's able to fold space and jump. You're going to find they still have sticky notes.
Yeah, and
so buy your stock
and
now.
dry erase boards and paper.
Yes.
So much paper.
Yes.
So much paper.
That the corners are cut off.
With corners cut off. So much dry erase
corners
board.
cut off. That's actually the shape of the trees on Capra.
And VGA graphics.
Well, yeah. Absolutely. So, I say we put the finishing touches on this one. Call this one a close.
Sounds good. All right, thanks for joining us. This is Jason. We'll see you next time.
And this is Red in Tow. And remember, never stop drinking and never stop smoking. You're never too young to start.
We'll see you next episode. Thanks.
Bye.